all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I am here to entertain. I am here for your viewing and listening pleasure. Hopefully at least listening. I don't know about the whole viewing thing, but I'm the only face I got, so I'm the one you get throughout the course of the show. But I hope you guys had a wonderful Independence Day, 4th of July. Surprisingly, there was fireworks here. I guess normally the local Lions Club handles the whole fireworks for the community or whatever. And in light of all the weirdness going on, they just said, nah, not this year. We're not going to do it. And so it was kind of just, in my understanding, there just wasn't going to be anything. And then the community rallied. And so we had fireworks last night. It was really nice. Excuse me. But, it was a good time. Took the Minion down to the park, and then we just camped out and watched the fireworks, and it was a lot of great times. And had a good day today, except for I found out one of the reasons I don't like flip-flops and bare feet, and that is because when you stub a toe, you stub all kinds of a toe. And I'm in the grocery store and walking along, and I don't know how the hell I even managed it, but I was just kind of turned sideways, and then I took a step forward and put my freaking pinky toe, smashed it right into the cartwheel, and I'm here to tell you, that was a fresh kind of pain. That was the kind that brought tears to my eyes. I was like, oh no. That hurts. But, then it turned like almost instantly a cool purple color, which is like great sign. So I think I managed to break my pinky toe on the light to the countdown to Coloma. So that's, hopefully I'll get that, mended quick, or I've got it all taped up now, so it should be good. But it was like, God, when you stub a toe when you're barefoot, you get all kinds of stuff going on. But it is what it is. Nothing I can do about it, but since I got the microphone, I just share it. I share it all with you because I'm an open book. So I hope you like to read. Anyway, guys, thanks for being here tonight. It's our Sunday night Night Terrors episode. So I've got some Night Terrors stuff for you, but the phone lines will be open if you want to call in and be a part of the show. 720-923-0500. Is the number for fun right here on the Paranormal Portal. Again, 720-923. No, Jesus, not 720-923-0500. That's what. As soon as that came out, I was like, that didn't sound right at all. Sorry, I have no excuse. I'm not even drinking, but yeah. It's just been one of those afternoons. So, but I hope you guys want to call in. You'll call in. Love to hear your paranormal experiences, or what your thoughts are on it. Whatever you decide to do, that is the number for fun. But if you'd like to share your experiences, but you're not really much, or you're nervous and don't feel comfortable calling in, you can always email your stories, and you can email them to paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And that will get to me, and I can share your stories for you. If you choose to go that route, I'm always happy. Either way, I mean, obviously, I'd rather you called in because it's great to have a discussion. But if you can't, you don't feel comfortable doing that, then just email me, because I'll share your stories and let people know what you've experienced either way. But anyway, I think that's all I got on the front end of this. Again, I hope everybody had a wonderful, safe yesterday, and welcome to today. And I hope I'll entertain you for the next roughly hour. So I guess it's about time for bed. Hope you're ready. All right, and the Duke's in the house. Good to see you, Duke. Just to let you guys know, on Wednesday, since we are on this countdown to Coloma, which will be happening this coming Friday, Saturday, we'll be doing an investigation over in Montana near Missoula. The Duke is hosting us over there and going to bring us up to the ghost town called Coloma. And it's something that we did last year. A friend of mine, Dan, a paranormal investigator, joined me, and we investigated it with Duke and his teams, and I had a great time last year, and we thought, God, we got to make this an annual event. So it is annual, and we'll be coming up to this weekend. We'll be going over there. Donna and I will be heading over to Coloma to meet up with the Duke and do some more investigating. If you haven't checked out those shows, there's a playlist on YouTube here on our channel. It's called Investigations, and you can see the Coloma trip from last year. And I tried to stream it and was able to successfully stream it for the most part. I hit some bad areas as far as reception, but we're kind of up on the mountain, like miles and miles and miles away from civilization. The fact that I could stream was just unbelievable to me, but I streamed what I could, and then we recorded some other footage, and all those videos are up on the Investigations playlist. And the Duke will be joining us this Wednesday on the Paranormal Portal, and we'll just be talking about what has happened, what they've experienced since then, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be doing on this weekend. And a couple of the listeners will be joining us, at least a few that I know of. So, it'll be really cool to get a chance to meet all you guys that are coming and to hang out. And hopefully we get some great activity. Now, not only is Coloma a ghost town, it's also a Bigfoot hotspot. And I'm here to tell you that in going through the footage last year, after Dan and I investigated, and Dan and I were alone up there at this time. It was in the daytime. And we did a daytime and a nighttime investigation on the Saturday. And I'm here to tell you, I was panning around with the camera, and as I was editing the footage, I was like, what's that? And up on the hill behind me, there was a tailings pile. The tailings pile is probably about 40 feet tall, and it's a little bit back in the distance. But as I'm panning around with the camera, you can see a shadow ducking down next to a tree up there. And it's really freaky. And I caught it, and I said to Duke, I said, Duke, what do you think of this? And he's like, whoa, that could be a good catch. Now, it isn't pristine, but clearly you can see there's a shadowy figure up there of some kind that does duck down. And Duke did a great job outlining that in a clip, and it's available on World Bigfoot Radio's playlist over there on his YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. And if you're interested in that, watch the chat, because perhaps Duke will tell us what he called that. I can't remember what that episode was called when he posted that. It's a shorter clip, but he did a great job slow motioning it and everything and breaking it down. It's really cool. Really did happen. There's no trickery. And Dan and I were absolutely alone on the mountain up there when this happened. So check it out. But a lot of weirdness going on up there. And we got some great EVP stuff, some great feedback when we were investigating from the spirit box stuff. It was just intense. And we're planning on doing all that and more this time. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, let's get into some of this fun stuff that we call the paranormal. And we're doing the ghost encounters tonight, so that means it's just a lot of ghost stories, people's encounters with the ghostly world. So, I'm getting parched. Too much talking. I should talk more during the day because then I'd be more prepped for the shows. But the first story I'm going to bring you tonight it's from the state of Texas. and it has to do with haunted places. And my story begins when I was about 9 years old. We'd been living in our home since I was 4 years old, and turning 9 was a real tumultuous time in my life. I had grown into a young woman, and my father had left. My mom had to work, and I realized I've read this story before. Oh God, I just checked it before the show. I was like, have I read this one? And I read the intro, and I was like, nope, I don't think I have. So I kept it up, and sure enough, but I actually did screen it. But I actually fooled myself. So never mind. The first story I'm bringing you tonight is actually from South Carolina, and this has to do with haunted places as well. So if you want to hear what happened in that last story, check the what was it, Thursday night's Night Terrors episode. God, I hate when I do that. Such a rookie move, too. But anyway, I got to tell you, I don't. This is obviously live and unrehearsed, and I do wear it right on the surface. So I'm not trying to fool anybody here. When I screw up, you'll know it, because I'll let you know. So it says, after my dad died, my mom had a stone house built in a nice quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of our town. When my mom bought the land she built our house on, there were not any other houses in the whole neighborhood. The whole area was covered with woods. No one knew about the history of the land, but no one ever gave it much thought either. Anyway, after the house was built, my mom, grandmother, and a couple of cousins and myself all moved in. Well, I was less than a year old when we moved in there, so that's the only home I ever known. As I grew up in the house, I started hearing my family members comparing strange events that had happened to them inside of the house. One of my uncles said that he saw a transparent-like figure walking out of his closed bedroom door. A female cousin of mine said she's experienced the exact same thing in the same bedroom that my uncle occupied. Unlike him, she tried to follow the figure, so she got up and looked down the hall, but the figure was gone. After those few sightings, they started complaining of hearing Indian drums coming from the same room, even when it was unoccupied. Being a little kid, I ignored most of this stuff because it didn't make any sense to me. When I started sleeping by myself, I had the bedroom where one of the walls connected to that active bedroom. One night at approximately 12:02 a.m., he says approximately, but then it says 12:02, so it's pretty precise, actually. One night at approximately 12:02 a.m., I heard it. The Indian drums. Well, at first I thought I was just imagining it, or thought it was just the TV from another bedroom, so I just attempted to ignore it and tried to go back to sleep. The longer I tried to ignore the sound, the louder they seemed to become. They finally became loud enough for me to hear the distinct rhythm of the drums. Boom, 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 boom. And the drums got louder and louder. Well, I was scared half to death. I was scared to get out of bed in case I saw something that I didn't want to see. But I was scared to stay in case it came in my room knowing that I was listening. After burying myself under the covers, struggling to breathe from fright and lack of oxygen, something finally came to me. My grandmother and mother had always told me that there was nothing that prayer couldn't fix. So I started saying the Our Father's prayer. The deeper I got into the prayer, the lower the Indian drums became until they were almost non-existent. By the time I was uttering the word Amen, the last of the Indian drums ceased at that same precise moment. After my prayer was done, there was peace at last. I felt as if something powerful yet wonderful was protecting me and rocking me to sleep, and at last I finally dozed off. When I woke up the next morning, I described my experience to my mom and had got a rude awakening. It just so happens that everyone that has ever stayed with us at one point or another has heard the drums, but tried to keep it from me, not wanting to scare me, including my mom's stay-in boyfriend at the time. He heard it his first night there and every night after that, and so did my stepfather years after that. So it makes me wonder, was that land an Indian burial ground? Or was it ancestors letting us know that they were still there? Yeah, the land remembers. There's so much history. So much history, and that's the part that's hard. You may not have had anything happen in your home. It may be a brand new home, but can you account for the land? What is this land experienced where we all are, in our different countries, different parts of the world? What could it be, and it could be anything. There's unfortunately a lot of history. There's a lot of history in this land, and I think the land remembers. I think that's it. All remembers. It's all remembered somehow. Like that energy doesn't just die away; it just becomes part of the land. So if it is a burial ground, then that energy is there, and will remain there. And if it's the site of a horrible thing happening, like a battle or something, the land remembers that. There's no the primary rule of basic physics. Energy isn't created nor destroyed; it just changes form. So the energy of those events, those imprints, that psychic energy that would be, immersed in the ground and in the atmosphere, it probably just becomes a part of the land. That imprint does, and it's stored in the land. And it's a stone tape theory is real popular belief in parapsychology, and it's the idea that's items of the earth, items record events. They can record those impressions and they can spit them back out every once in a while. It's kind of the basis for the residual hauntings where, events just happen. And there's no intelligence to it really. It's just, they just happen. And I know that it's, oftentimes we talk about intelligent haunts or residual haunts. And I agree with our friend MCAT, who says, he thinks that it's a much broader spectrum than that. And I agree with him. I don't think it's either intelligence or just a recording. I think there's more to it as well, and there's layers or variations of that. But I think for the sake of putting an understanding to it, that residual is just like a recording playing over and over, and intelligence seems to interact or have at least seems to play with the people that are there in a sense. And I don't mean play as in being playful, but having directing activity towards the people there to let them know that they're there. But it's hard to it's not so easy to figure it out, which is which. Like if an apparition just goes through a room, doesn't acknowledge you, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not an intelligent, active spirit. It just means that it didn't bother with you at all for whatever reason. It could very well be intelligent. It could very well be very aware of what's going on and very aware that you're there, but it may not bother with you. And I think there's definitely that's definitely a good thought on his part, because it's not just if it looks at me then it's intelligent. If it doesn't look at me, it's residual. And a lot of people default to that, and they just give it either an identity or just an impression. That's it. So I don't know. Just some food for thought. Sorry. Let's get to the next one, and this one is coming from Arizona. We don't hear a lot from Arizona. This is let's see what's going on there, and it has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. It says it was sometime in May of 2008, late at night. I was 17 years old at the time. I was getting a drink of milk, I think. And as I waltzed in, I noticed a hot blonde lass. Wondered how she got in there, as I was the only one in the house. Well, I felt I could risk communicating with her without a prayer of protection. I guess this person must be psychic or something. She was wearing a blood-red dress, and I swear to God, she's much smaller than me. She's somewhere between the age of 18 to 21, now is filled with curiosity and fear, but mostly curiosity. But I was unable to talk or move for a while. She was standing next to the back sliding glass door. Well, I almost wound up saying nice moves, but was afraid of provoking her or making her uncomfortable. She didn't say anything or point at anything or communicate with me in any way. She just twirled around until she spotted me watching. Then once she saw me, she looked annoyed and scared to death of me. I wanted to give her some solace. Then I looked at the refrigerator for some reason and then looked back, and she completely vanished. She didn't go through the screen door or walk past me. She hasn't been spotted since. Who is she? Does she like me? Is she good or bad? Should I attempt an EVP session with her? What does she want with me? Is she telling me something with her dancing? When will she be seen again? I don't know. That's an awful lot to ask anybody. There are just some events, ladies and gentlemen, that are just one-offs. They're just one-off events, and it might be that spirits can come and go as they wish, that they might just be kind of wandering through. They might see your house and decide to check it out. So I don't think that every time there is spiritual activity, it is indicative of a presence, a long-term presence. I just think sometimes they're there. Sometimes they stop in. Sometimes they wander through. I don't know. So I don't know. This isn't. It's a different story. But what's weird is this person asking all of these questions. Like somebody can read this paragraph or two and say, "Well, this is what the spirit wanted." And I don't know. But the way they start out the story, it sounds like they're psychic or have psychic inclination. I don't know. Hard to say. Man, I'm just raspy as hell. Sorry. I'm just getting my bearings here. All right, let's go to the next one. I don't know. I don't have any answers for that person. And I think it's an awful lot to say, hey, I saw a ghost. What does she want? Where's she going? When will she be back? This is this whole laundry list of questions like somebody ought to know. I don't know. I got no answers. So the next one is from California, and it has to do with psychic/medium experience. It's pretty long. Not too bad. I guess this is a medium-sized story. It says, too many times I've seen them diving under the waves. The horrible part is when they don't come up for air. This is when I start to panic, wondering if I should toss off my coat and shoes, pull off my heavy jeans, and go after them. I don't know. That's a weird way to start a story. I don't want to hesitate too long just in case it is a real living person and not the residue from the past. The difficult thing is being a sensitive is I get so used to walking with the dead I forget to separate the emotions, the ability to differentiate between what is real or simply residual. It makes my stomach hurt to think that I'm watching somebody drown. So far, it's just memories imprinted onto the area. I hear their cries as they struggle to survive when they change their minds and try to go back. Too late. I feel the pain and the suffering as they try to hold on. Most of them get so tired they can't hold their weight above the cold waters of the Pacific. The Hispanic who try to go around the border patrol, they don't swim so well. It's like a massive wave of images inundating my mind's eyes. This is one of my experiences, what I saw on one specific day. I took a drive down to Imperial Beach with my husband. I was there. I felt a heavy breath of sorrow hanging over me, and I never know if I'll be able to tolerate what I'll be shown. But I can't stop living because the dead intersect my path. Hesitation overwhelmed me, and I thought long and hard about what I was feeling. I wasn't sure if I should chance it and go walking along the beach, but it was such a pretty day. My husband was leaving it up to me, and I made the wrong decision on that day. I should have gone back to the car, but I wanted to take a stroll along the water's edge. It wasn't the romantic hand holding that I had envisioned. My heart was growing heavier by the moments, and I tried so hard to ignore them. It isn't something I can shut out, all those voices crying out from the sea. My knees were growing wobbly, and it weakened me to the point where I could no longer stand, and right there, I let go of my husband's supportive arm and sat down on the cool sand. He joined me and placed an arm around my shoulder, and out of curiosity, I asked him if he could hear the cries. He looked into my eyes and said, "No," in a soft whisper. He knows not to talk too loudly when I'm in the throes of the paranormal. I told him what I was seeing, and he held me tighter. I was shaking pretty good by this point, and crying along with the wave of voices. I saw them bobbing and weaving along the sea. I witnessed them giving in and floating face down. Most of them had become caught in a riptide and pulled out too deep. They were so tired. The need to survive is strong, but the body gives in when it's time to give up. It isn't the nicest of sounds. It is an unpleasant visual as well, but I don't have a choice. On that day, I saw hundreds from the past. Men, women, children, teens, each death unfortunate and untimely. My husband watched me mourn each and every one of them. Quietly, he sat there next to me, arms wrapped around me as I wept for them. I described what I saw, and I told him so he could understand. He listened with concern and sadness. He believes in me, and I am blessed. I know we've read that one before. It was quite a while ago, and I remember this person that submitted the story. I think what it was is we had to happen onto one of her stories, and it was so well put together, and I really was compelled to read more of her experiences because I've often wondered, what is it like? What is it like to see those things, to hear those things? And as much as I think it would be really great to have an opportunity to talk with these people that have passed on, I guess that's the other side of it, is when it's dark and when it's sad and when you have to watch people's last moments as they're desperately hanging on. That's real tragic. And that would be the price, I guess. Nothing comes cheap, right? But it is sad. It's so, so sad. And I can't imagine the weight of having to witness all those demises and all those people suffering and trying to hang on. Man, I don't know. All right, the next one is actually a story about a Ouija board, and it's coming from Illinois. And again, we cover Ouija board stories a lot. Unfortunately, it does seem to be the reason a lot of people have experiences, right? Because the Ouija board, I mean, what else do you have to say? Ouija board. You say the word, and automatically people are like, no. We have this reaction to it, and it's a earned reputation, I have to say. I mean, people misusing Ouija boards, I'm sure, are probably at some of the root of some of the worst hauntings anywhere. There's a lot to that kind of a thing. There's a lot to utilizing a method of communicating with the other side. I don't know if it's really an oracle kind of thing. Some people call the Ouija board an oracle of sorts, much like tarot and stuff. But I don't think it's quite the same thing. But I think that it's, if anything, it's a shortcut to mediumship, and I think that's where the danger of it is that by using a Ouija board, you are becoming a blind channel, and that's a term I've used for years now, and I think it's the best way to kind of sum up what is going on. You are, as a person, are saying, "Come through me," and give your messages because you're connected with the board, and you are utilizing your energy, your energetic presence, in order for some unseen unknown to come through you, and it may be done with intention, like I want to talk to my relatives, I want to talk to blah blah blah, and granted, maybe 90% of the time nothing happens. And maybe 8% of the time something happens, but it's ambiguous. But there, and it whittles down. But then you get down to the small percentages where something very profound happens and something's there, and you've just made contact with something that you're going to have to fight through. You're going to, and that's the dangerous part, is it's a blind channel. That's what I mean by a blind channel. You're reaching out for something to come through. And sometimes that something that's there is not something anybody should ever communicate with. Not something anybody should ever try to channel. I mean, there's a magical practice called invoking. Now, there's evoking and there's invoking, and you'll hear both of those terms. Evoking is a method of bringing a spiritual or other presence into the world. You're bringing it into the world to be to exist of its own. Invoking means to bring it into yourself, and a lot of magical practitioners, true magical practitioners, will invoke personalities, deities, things like that, to give them strength. They will invoke these to come into them and give them strength and the ability to do more than they could have without it. So evoking is calling something in, like a normal seance, come into the world, and et cetera, et cetera. Invoking is to bring something into you, and it's usually done in a very controlled way, full of protections. And I think that a Ouija board is actually invoking something to you. I think you're bringing it into you, and it has an amount of authority at that point because you've allowed it in. And 99% of the time, it'll be just fine. But there is that 1% or less than 1% when what's around is something so dark and horrible that you're in for a nightmare ride that, quite honestly, some people don't make it through. When you get into oppression and possession and stuff like that, some people don't make it through that. And I would caution anyone and everyone to be extraordinarily careful whenever you're playing with things like that. Whenever invoking something, you have to understand that it's a very the gravity of that spiritually is very profound, and so be very, very careful. But anyway, that's kind of a spider webbed out of it a little bit there. But let's get back to the actual story and see what happens. So this is again from Illinois. It says, this is a bit long, I'm sorry, but it happened in December of 2008. I was really hesitant to post it because I've seen the negative feelings expressed on this forum regarding the use of Ouija boards. However, in lurking around, the knowledge I gained helped me put a stop to what was going on before it became a problem. A few friends that I had headed to an abandoned nursing home for our first Ouija board experience together. I had tried it a few times in my childhood and with not many interesting results. We made a board out of plywood, sanded it, and personalized it, and we chose a room with glassless window for an easy escape, laid a circle of salt around us, and began. I was documenting the questions and answers in a notebook while the others participated. We began the session with the question, "Is anyone here?" First mistake. That's the first mistake. Followed by, "Are you the sun or the moon? Do you love God?" Since I've read somewhere that these questions are the only ones demons cannot lie about. Whether or not there is truth to this, I'd like some feedback. Well, me too. I don't think there's anything a demon has to be honest about. We eventually contacted a spirit who called herself Joe-C, Joessee, which we deduced and confirmed with the spirit was a phonetic spelling for the name Josie. And apparently Josie had not been a resident of the nursing home, but someone she loved had. During the entire experience, our board would begin to rotate or spin slowly during the spirit's answers. And when we asked Josie where her love was now, she directed the planchette to the moon, symbol which we'd read was symbolic of hell. And during her answer, the board began to almost twitch erratically, first beginning to rotate one direction and then another direction. And we took this as Josie being irritated or sad at having to discuss something she found so painful. After this, we asked her if she wanted to quit, and she said yes. So we ended our session that night by saying goodbye with the board. Weeks later, we decided to try another location, this time an abandoned fraternity house that had, in the times just after slavery, been, I'm not really fond of this word, but Negro Children's School. We chose a room far inside of the house, but this time forgot to bring salt for a circle. Having become a bit too cocky, perhaps, we jumped right into our session. Is anyone there? Yes. Are you from the sun or the moon? The planchette moved to the moon rather slowly, as if not wanting to admit this. The four of us looked at one another. Not good. But for some reason, we decided to ask one final question. Do you love God? No. That was the final straw for us. We said goodbye and immediately left the premises. A few days later, at one of the friends' houses, we chilled out for a bit before trying the board again. We were curious to see what results we could get in his basement. We opened the session, again neglecting a salt circle, and it went a little bit like this. Anyone there? Yes. This answer came very quickly to our surprise. Are you from the sun or the moon? Moon. Again, very quickly. We were uneasy at this point and we closed the session. However, curious as we were, we wanted to ask it just one more question. So we reconnected and asking it the same questions as before. Yes, someone's here. Yes, from the moon. And then, were you the one we contacted the other night? Very quickly, the quickest answer we got, yes. Immediately, we closed the session, moving the planchette to goodbye, and exited the room. I began to feel uneasy and a bit sick to my stomach, and particularly angry at one of my friends. They did a bit of online research, which I dozed and brooded while I dozed and brooded on a bed. Eventually, they did what they could to bless some water. We broke the board into pieces, 7 maybe, I don't remember. But we'd researched this too, and we went into the woods to bury the pieces and sprinkle each grave with the water we'd blessed. And after this, I felt strange, perhaps psychological, sense of relief. Nothing strange has happened after that, but I find it fascinating and very scary that an entity might have followed us. We still aren't sure whether or not it followed us, as one friend had a rather misfortunate event in the days between the last 2 Ouija sessions, or had become attached to the board. I doubt I'll try Ouija again. What do you think? Feedback is welcome. Don't. I can tell you right now why the same spirit came through, even though they were in 2 different locations. And that's because moving the planchette or the pointer over the words goodbye is not closing that session. That is not closing that out. That's just not good enough. You've got to use some pretty serious things like profound prayer, holy waters, sage, crystals, whatever. And you've got to have a ritual of closing. You've got to close that ritual. And moving a piece of plastic, in the case of a can board like I got on the wall over here, moving that over goodbye is not doing anything. And it's got to be an admonition. It's got to be, you've got to do a lot more than that to close a session. I don't want to get into the how-tos or the what you should do's, but, I'll tell you that Dragging it over goodbye isn't it. That's not it. So, in fact, I believe they had an active connection to the board. Wherever they would have brought it, they could have brought it to, Brazil, and they would have got the same spirit coming through, because that was the focal point. That was the connection that was never broken. And, I guess the holy water and breaking it into pieces, yeah, that might work. And then burying it and dousing that with holy water, sure. But I think people have very little information about these kind of things, and the information they have is not good. It's not good information. So be careful, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever decide to play with a Ouija board. And again, I'm not into don't touch them, they're evil, blah blah blah. I think they can be used respectfully and appropriately and safely, but I just don't think that many people realize what that means. So I guess if you have any trepidation at all, don't do it. There's no real reason. And by the way, you're probably never talking to what you think you're talking to anyway. And while it's a parlor trick in some cases, and it's a goofy game in others, there is the risk. There's enough people having had horrendous experiences as a result of playing with a Ouija board that it's certainly not worth it. So just my 2 cents again. Yeah, I like that. Pharmacy in the chat says equivalent to trying to fly a 7047 with no flight experience at all. Exactly, because I'm here to tell you, evoking and invoking things. I mean, we evoke things all the time and invoke in our prayer, God, give me strength. That's a form of invocation. It's asking the Holy Spirit to come into you. If you're Christian or other whatever observation you have, whatever religious alignment you have, those are all forms of invocation where you're invoking the divine to come into you and protect you. But that's a safe bet. You're not calling in something dark and evil when you're doing that. So it doesn't have a risk involved because you're already devoted to that and that is your path. But when you're invoking something dark or questionable, then it becomes a real problem because you don't know. So be careful. Make sure anytime you're dealing with spiritual stuff, you've done your homework. If it's still something you want to do and want to get involved with, be very careful. I wouldn't encourage it, but be very careful. The ramifications are pretty steep. And again, if there are people that have been absolutely possessed as a result of playing with spiritual forces they don't understand. And again, not all exorcisms are successful. There's many of them that aren't, and that means they weren't able to save the person before the person passed and was taken away. So it's really, really kind of sketchy, scary stuff, and it should not be done lightly. Okay. All right, here's another one, and this is coming from Wisconsin, and this is family and friends visits. I like these. These are usually nice, feel-good kind of stories, unless the person visiting was a jerk. But all right, so this one is, my mom lived in the lower level of my house for the last 2 years of her life. Excuse me. She was suffering the entire time from liver and kidney disease. How did I make that Lidney? I don't even know. Liver and kidney disease. She wasn't a drinker, but the doctors thought she may have contracted cirrhosis from blood she received while giving birth to me in the 60s. They said blood just didn't go through all the tests that it does now. She passed away in the hospital on March 14th, 1999 at the age of 63. I miss her so much. Several days later, my 2 brothers and I were going through her things. We'd already moved several things out of her bedroom/living room. I looked down at the carpet and saw the indentations where her favorite chair had been. I bent over in the empty space and put my arms around where Mom would have been sitting, had she been still there. I said to my brothers, "Look, if Mom were still here, I'd be hugging her right now." And suddenly my whole body began to tingle from head to toe. My hair stood on end, and I felt like an electric current was going through me. It was very warm and comforting, so very peaceful, and yet overwhelming. I cried my eyes out. I knew right then and there that I was being hugged by my mom. My brothers wouldn't try it to see if the same thing had happened to them. My mom was the kind of woman that when you visited, no matter what the mood of the visit was, good or bad, she always had a hug and a kiss for you before you left. I can hardly believe it's been 10 years. I love you, Mom. I said, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. I wish everybody would have those experiences. Maybe we do. Maybe everybody does have those experiences, but they come to us in more subtle ways, and we don't really realize it. I honestly think when you're holding an image of someone you love in your mind, and you maybe will catch a smell that'll remind you of them, maybe a song, maybe a certain sound. Sometimes it's even just like my cousin's mom. She was my cousin, but she was much older, so she was much more like another mom or an aunt, a favorite aunt of mine. But she was actually my cousin. But she always would stay up late. It didn't matter what time we came back in when I was living with them. We'd come back in at 2 or 3 in the morning. She was always up. She was just sitting back reading, and I'm sure she was staying up just because, it was her way of making sure everything was fine. But I don't know, there's something, and then we'd sit, once we come in, sit and talk with her, just chat and have a good time, and just a little bit before going to bed. And there was always a feeling that lighting gave me, and it was a really beautiful, comforting feeling. And I still find myself lighting my home in that same method, in that same low light, because it just reminds me of something so wonderful and comforting. And so I think in those moments when I'm thinking of that, maybe she's right there with me, having that moment with me. I don't know. But sometimes it's a sound, like you'll just hear a sound that reminds me of my grandma, something that would happen at my grandmother's house, just a single sound. And it's like, boom, I'm taken on a journey in my mind to those memories. And maybe those are the visits. Maybe the visits happen like that. Like they're not always extraordinarily profound and, these religious experiences, but they're just heartwarming experiences that are warm and bring us back to that love and to that moments when we were together. And I think that that's probably true. I think they're always with us, So this one's coming from Texas. Oh, it's sleep paralysis. It's pretty short, though. It says, my next story happened to my mom, brother, and myself. Hold on. It says, I know of sleep paralysis, and one might think that what I experienced was that. The only difference is, could 3 people suffer the same thing within the course of a day? Well, that decision is up to you. It was a good day, nothing out of the ordinary. I woke, got dressed, went off to school. The day was pretty normal until I went to bed. I always woke at about 3 a.m. every day, and I guess it was my internal clock telling me to wake up. This time was a little different. I woke up to a pressure on my chest. I opened my eyes and went to get up, but I couldn't move. I tried to use my arms, but found out I couldn't. The only thing I could move were my legs. I started kicking and lifting myself up with my legs, but the top half of me wouldn't budge. After what seemed like hours, was only a minute or so, I was finally able to move. I sat up in bed and looked around in the darkness, but there was nothing there that I could see. This alone could have been sleep paralysis, but the next day, when I told my mom, she looked at me a bit weird. Then she told me what she went through earlier that day while we were at school. My mom said she woke up to a pressure on her chest. She went through basically the same sensations I went through. Only she said she could see herself sitting at the bottom of the bed. She said she closed her eyes and put her hands together and started praying. When the experience finally passed, she looked at her hands and found them to be bleeding. She had pretty long nails, and so when she had clasped her hands, they were so tight, she had made herself bleed. Years later, my brother told us of his experience. He wasn't nearly as frightened as my mom and I were. It was early in the morning before we were to wake up for school. My brother said he felt really uncomfortable, and he woke up. And when he opened his eyes, he saw a dark shadow above him, just hovering. He looked for a bit and then closed his eyes and went back to sleep. I don't know how he did that, but he was always saying that it was his friend. So there's my latest story. I hope you all enjoyed it. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Is that I guess, see, there's a thing is, I think there is sleep paralysis. I've said this many times on the show. I think there is people that experience that weird physiological thing where, I don't know if it's the chemical that keeps us kind of in that standby phase so we don't run around acting out our dreams, kind of disconnects our mind from our body while we sleep. But I think there really is that, and I think maybe everybody's experienced something about that or like that. But I think there's also a supernatural kind of sleep paralysis. Now, when the person talks about not being able to raise the top part of their body, but their legs are fine, that doesn't sound like sleep paralysis in the medical sense. It doesn't sound like the same thing. They felt the pressure pressing down. They can move their legs, but not their upper torso. And that's really peculiar. And I would have to say that does sound like the spiritual kind of paralysis. And I use the term sleep paralysis just for convenience sake. It's called the old hag syndrome, or there's other names for it, but it's just essentially the idea that something is coming and preying on you in your sleep. And some people believe they draw a life force. They draw our energy to sustain themselves. And some people believe it's just something dark and sinister trying to torment you. And I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I certainly do think there is things, spiritual things, or things we perceived as spiritual that do these things. And I don't know why, but they seem to find some joy in it, or maybe it is a way to sustain themselves. I don't know. It's creepy. I've heard stories of people waking up to find this haggard looking face right in front of their face and sucking in, like they're drawing in light or something. And it's just like, oh, that's horrible. But who knows? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. But I do know one thing. I know that's basically our show. So we got a call. I guess it can't be our show. I got to get to the call. Sorry, I didn't look, but it looks like Dee. Is this you, Dee?
Hi.
Hi. How are you? I almost didn't see your call.
I'm groovy. I've been waiting a little bit.
Oh.
Hey, did you hear? I don't know if you knew him, but Milky Way Messenger passed. Brian.
Who?
His name was Brian Barnett. He had a channel where he did music videos.
No,
He was kind of on the circuit between Wayne's show and Rex's show, and sometimes he would come into the portal, but not very often. Like I think only a couple of times or something. But I went to the remote view class. Well, he had a lot of problems.
Okay.
And when they started giving people trouble about copyrights for music, I mean, what he mostly did was he would take music and then he would make a video to go with the music, and that was mostly what he did. And so he took it very hard, I think. It was rough on him. And so I was at a remote view class recently, and we didn't know what our target was going to be. Okay. But he had us do a place because, I like to keep up. I like to keep honing my skills as a remote viewer and a remote effector.
Okay.
And a medium, because we're all kind of tied together.
Okay.
So, and anyway, all of a sudden, I'm seeing it, and it's not just a static place. It's like this. It's like this place out in the mountains, and I think it was maybe this kind of rugged terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And up drives this race car, and somebody steps out, and he's all in a silver suit and a helmet. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And finally, I'm trying to describe what I'm seeing. And finally, when it was time, the guy said, well, Brian passed. Brian Milky Way Messenger passed. And so he's a good friend of the show, and that's what the target was. So then this guy takes off his helmet, and it's Milky Way. It's Brian. And he says, tell him I'm okay, will you? Tell him I'm fine. It's a lot nicer here. And don't worry about me. And just don't worry, period. Okay?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just don't worry. Don't worry.
That's really cool.
And, so it was so cool. I have to tell you, as you were telling these ghost stories and asking all these questions, and then I got at least one where, that was just recent. That was just yesterday.
Oh,
so
that's really cool.
If anybody does know him, that's my little story about Brian. And everybody at the remote view session got a part of that. So we did actually manage to visit Brian where he is now in the other
really
world.
Cool.
I find it very interesting, and I'll let you know what else we do, because this guy is into letting us do some very strange things. So I'll tell you about it next time. Anyway, I know you want to wrap up, but I hope that people now love me because I'm making the show go longer. Okay, bye.
All right, Dee, love you. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I got to think that remote viewing, I think, is very powerful. And I suppose, it's probably a great opportunity to bump it. I've not heard of that before, though. That's what's interesting. I don't know, and I don't pretend to know much about remote viewing. Of course, just the little bits and pieces that have popped through in my journeys into the paranormal, just the mentions mostly. But I've not heard, I don't think, ever before of people remote viewing and yet having a spiritual visitation during that. I think that's that. Well, I know that's the first time I've heard of it, but I'm not. I guess I didn't know that was a possibility, but it makes sense because I think either way you're projecting yourself out there, and I guess if somebody has something to say, that'd be probably a good opportunity for them to come find you. Who knows? But anyway, that's about all I got. So thank you all very much. Remember, there'll be no live show Monday or Tuesdays, but Don and I will be back on Wednesday with the Duke, our very own Duke Sullivan of World Bigfoot Radio. Remember, check out on Duke's show on his channel the video from our last Coloma trip. And I don't know, Duke, if you posted what the name of that was on your playlist, but I guess I'll try to find it. Or I'll talk to Duke and post it on post a link to it on the Paranormal Portal radio page on Facebook if you want to check that out. But just some weird shadow thing that ducks down. Really cool, and we're gonna actually dig into that a little bit too when we're up in Coloma. Duke wants to do some reenactments of that, see if we can dial that in and figure out how big whatever that shadow is, because it's off in the distance a little bit, but it's just a really bizarre thing. So I'm just checking. Oh, Duke did make a link to it. Okay, you know what? I might go long here. Let's just take a look at this. Oh my God, I didn't know I could do that. No, I couldn't do that. Never mind. It won't let me do that. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I got to get back. Let me see. Hold on. Let me do that again. Da-da-da. Nope, it's not letting me do that. Damn it. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to go to the link, but I'm getting an error probably because I'm broadcasting here and trying to do it. So that's not good. I think I might have just screwed myself. What the hell did I just do? Thanks. All right, I might have just screwed myself up here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get back here. Let me go forward, backwards. What the hell's going on? Hold on a sec, folks. I've managed to pull a Lulu here. Damn it. Okay, I've got something all screwed up. I have no idea how I did it, ladies and gentlemen, but it looks like I found a way to screw up my own stream. I'm going to try to get back to it here. Let's see if I can get it on. I am live already. Let's see if I can do this. Go live. Open a new. Try to get back to my own live my own live screen if I can. Where is it? I think this is it. Yeah, 67. That's what we're doing now. Yeah, okay, we're here. I'm still here, but hold on. Oh my God. Let's see. Let me blow this up. I'm going to try to open this link if I can and put it on our screen, but where is it? There it is. Copy. Okay, I've copied it. I'm going to try to put it up on the screen here, ladies and gentlemen, for our viewing pleasure. But I might have to actually open it over here. Let me see if this works. Paste. To not open it in the same window that I'm streaming from. No. Yep. Here it is. All right. So this is a collaboration. Hold on a sec. I'm going to mute this so I don't get any issues with any music. I don't know if the music is a problem or not, but watch on the rise up here as it's coming around. There, right by that tree. Watch it duck down. There it goes. See how it's ducked down now? There's something up there. I don't know what it is. Again, Dan and I were the only ones up there in this truck. And that's where we saw it. And now Duke does a great job. Right up here in this little fork is where you're going to focus your eyes. There. So you can see something was standing in there and now it's gone. And it's this really small, ambiguous blob, but you have to understand, this is back in the distance a bit. This is the tailings pile. Individual crops. Yeah, I mean, Duke did a great job of breaking this down and letting you see what's going on. And here's the area of interest. You see, something's going down there. Strange. Now, I'm not making any judgment calls of what it is. I just know that there's something up there that was blocking out all the light. And as I'm panning with the camera, it's suddenly not there. It's like removed itself. So, is it definitive? Absolutely not. It's not. But it's anomalous, and I think that that's the key to remember. This is something anomalous that was found as I was editing video, and I can't explain it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, and special thanks to World Bigfoot Radio, our very own Duke Sullivan. Check out his channel if you haven't already. It's right here, World Bigfoot Radio. Great site. The Duke's been a long-time friend of the show, and obviously he's a mod here, so he's part of the family, but you ever want to catch some of the best discussions out there on the Bigfoot, talking to researchers and getting into the real nuts and bolts of Bigfoot, and then that's where you want to go. So, but that's about all I got, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed that little extended foray into the paranormal portal. Thank you again, Duke, for posting that up here so that everybody could see it. It's just a really bizarre thing. Just a really bizarre thing, ladies and gentlemen. But that's what we do here. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you very much for being here, and I hope you have a great couple of days. We'll see you again on Wednesday night right here with Don and the Duke, and we'll be doing our countdown to Coloma Wednesday 2-hour show, talking about Coloma and more. So, until then, I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. All right, guys, love you. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon.